And hello, everybody. Welcome to the Football 360 show. It is Tuesday, April the 1st, 2025. I am JP Rock. There's my social media. He is Matt Bierman. How you doing today, Matt?
Doing great.
There's his social media. You can find us on X, on Instagram, JP Rock MO, JP Rock Scout U. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, just the podcast version. And of course, you can find Matt at Elite Football on X and Elite Football Academy on the gram. So we've decided to make a big announcement, a big change here. We're going to be changing the name of the show to the Golf 360 Show.
Yep.
And no more football. No.
That's our expertise.
That's our
now.
expertise now. I wanted to do girls softball.
Yeah.
Matt wanted to do golf. So are you a big golf guy? We've never really talked about it.
You know what?
I know you got family members.
I have a niece who's world class, golfs at Michigan State. But no, my golf game I used to be a fairly good golfer, learned when I was a little kid, and then I stopped about 20-something years ago when I started Elite.
Really?
I just stopped golfing altogether.
Yeah. See, I'm the same. It's like, I know it's a cool, like, networking, or, if you do in business, it's almost like a must. You got to get out there. And then I have family who's the same. They just live on a, love it. Everything, anytime you go over to their place, it's the Golf Channel.
Yeah.
Is on. I'm like, man,
I do enjoy watching some golf. Like if I'm, especially in the springtime,
you want to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Just
relaxing.
Relax. Yeah. Put some yacht rock on in the background, watch some golf.
It's definitely,
yeah.
I do need to decompress from football. sleep. So, it's a struggle when they go to school at 7 or 8 in the morning anyway, let alone an environment where they're getting up even earlier before school. So I understand the mental toughness aspect, but I like to win. And so I would far prefer to do something that is not going to interfere with their normal sleep pattern, which again, you can make the argument like, well, they should go to bed earlier. Yeah, but there's a lot of things that have to coincide after school and take place that's going to probably screw them over to a certain degree.
Right.
I may have told you this before, but when the Rams were here, the last 4 years they were here, they had a policy on the team that the players could wake up and could come into work when they woke up. So, and you say, well, why would you do that? Why would you give them the leeway? Well, they had to be in bed. I think there was like a statutory time by like 11 p.m. But whatever time their body slept to, they allowed them to come in. And the reason being is that the body will try and get whatever amount of sleep it needs, right? So if it wakes up, it's probably fine. But if it slumbers and stays in a deep rest for longer, that's when all the repairing's taking place, right? So if you just watch, like if there's like Whoop bands and like Oura rings, things like that, or your Apple Watch, all those things are giving like good biometric feedback to like the body, like of what the body's doing. Like for instance, I have an Oura ring on, so it's just a ring that basically I've had it for probably 8 years now. And it will tell you like on nights like, hey, you thought you got good sleep, but you did not get good sleep, because it measures your deep sleep and your REM and all that stuff. So if you're an athlete, right, for you and I, we just wake up and like, back in it again. You don't feel great. But for an athlete, there's huge ramifications to performance, huge ramifications to the ability to really just ascertain and gain and get better over time. And unfortunately, I think a lot of coaches are more like, I'm just going to be old school and we're going to do it this way. Yeah. Or it's easier because we have other, and the tough thing is with the spring sport thing, why do you do it in the morning? Well, because they don't have practice for the other sports, so you get it out of the way. But if you think about if that kid, say he goes to sleep at 10, he gets up he's up by 5, right? So if he gets 7 hours of sleep, maybe if you're lucky, right? Yeah. I mean, if you're lucky, and then he has a full day, right? Yeah, but for them, they need more because of the growth going on, right? Yeah. So that kid then goes to, he has school. He's probably not going to get a lot of good food right after practice because he's going straight to school. Food options in schools are not great for breakfast, right? From a nutrition standpoint,
we have a lot of kids that don't eat,
right? Yeah. Then they go to a full day. They get their lunch, and then they go to a practice, and then they probably don't eat again till 6, 7. So you're talking about somebody who, unless they're pre-planning, and so that's the other thing is I have an issue with is if you're going to do that stuff, then you need to be like very educational to the kids and teach them this is what you should be doing. Yeah. This is what time you should be in bed. And I'd be willing to bet you that's not going on across the country.
Not at all. I mean, how many times you're a night owl, I'm a night owl, how many times you're up, then somebody will message a kid, message you, or a kid will be posting at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning.
All the time.
It's like, wow, that's crazy. How are you getting up and how are you functioning as you?
Well, yeah, because then they have that whole, and that's it's just a cascade cycle. So if you're a young athlete or a parent of a young athlete, there's a lot of resources out there that talk specifically about what we're talking about and like what kind of rest they need to get, and what kind of food they should be eating, intervals when they should be eating. And again, I think, the old school mentality of like, well, that's not the way we did it. Yeah, right. But the problem is we didn't have this information, right. And we kind of knew
2025. We don't have that,
right? Like, what are you supplementing with? What are your hydration levels? All those things that are like, kind of like you should know. Unfortunately, a lot of these kids they go to college and they're malnourished and educated on how to take care of their body. It's the first time they ever do, but they're competing against guys that know what they're doing.
Right. Well, I mean, if you talk to any college coach, they give them a schedule what they think, and bedtime 9 o'clock, because you're going to be up and at 5:30 in the morning, and doing all that stuff you talk about. And you're absolutely right. I don't think nutrition or as sleep is really. What would you say that the recommended? I mean, you really pay attention to this stuff.
8 to 9 hours.
8 to 9 hours. Yeah.
I mean, I will tell you.
I mean, when I was young, it was nothing to sleep 10 hours.
Yeah, I will tell you the
11
like if you
hours.
look at the Whoop band, which is like the thing, a wearable, I will see
What
even
genre of music is it?
yeah. So my son has one, and I'll look at his, and it will say there's days where say he gets 8 hours of sleep, which I think is a decent night for him.
Yeah.
There's other days he's less, other days he's a little more. There's days where because it basically is based off of like your heart rate variability, respiration rate, all these things while you're sleeping. What level of sleep you're getting, and it will tell you like, hey, look, you restored, but you needed 11 hours of sleep because
Yeah.
of the work you did yesterday.
Right.
Because it's monitoring what your workload was. So my point is, that kid that had a practice in the morning, probably has a lifting class during the day, and then has a sport after school. Like, yeah, that's being active, and you think you're doing great, but if you don't get that sleep and
You're
you're
not
not
gonna build.
nutrition, you're screwing
Right.
yourself.
You're
And
just tearing
again,
yourself down constantly.
and the problem is that somewhere in that matrix, there's somebody checking a box and saying, "Well, yeah, Timmy was here and he did his workout."
Mhm.
But I think for me, technically, there's a lot of like malpractice going on when you are a coach and you say that this is what you're doing for your livelihood, right? And this is what you got into, and you have not taken the time to understand, you're dealing with, there's a psychological side to the athlete. So there's that whole component. There's the physical side, which is like the skill and the X's and O's or whatever sport you're playing. This, I'm not even just talking about football. And then there's this sleep and nutrition component that, again, you don't need to be an expert in it, but you need to have some guardrails so you can educate your families and people, or get people around people that know what they're doing, right? So uh I just it really floors me because, again, I understand as a coach, but I will tell you, with my middle school team, if I'm lying, I'm dying. Numerous times throughout the week, I speak to them about sleep, speak to them about eating properly, talk to them about, just good, mental health behavior issues, obviously how to act at home and act at school, things like that. But that is part of being a coach, right? And that's part of, being a part of a winning culture. And I think, uh, showing up and doing it, just showing up and checking the box, those days are gone. And people say, well, yeah, in college they have to do it because it's a business. Yeah, but if you're going to do it and you're getting paid to do this, I'm not saying you need to be, an expert in all those things, but there do need to be, align yourself with experts or do some reading and just put up some basic educational material and talk to your kids about it, because you and I both know the parents and the kids do not know. It's not stuff that's just known. It's not just street level knowledge. It's
Right.
just it's literally something that has to be taught.
Absolutely. And I mean, parents are in the dark about so much as far as just the whole process with football and what needs to be done to get a kid from this level to that level, and they're just bombarded and they got their other everyday lives. So it's really good if there are people like that, or like you, or this podcast to help get that
Yeah.
out there.
And I think it starts at a young age too, because it's really, this is, I think, is so funny about all of this
Habits.
is okay. Let's just say you have a kid, and this is a real world experience. This is the email I fired off just a little bit ago.
Hmm.
And so we have a flag football component to what we do, right? So typically flag football in the spring is a what I would call a secondary sport, because what are the big spring sports? Baseball,
Mhm.
going into summer, base spring, and then soccer, and then lacrosse even now.
Right.
So that's kind of the primary sports that are getting played. And flag football is what I would consider a auxiliary sport, because it's not tackle football. It's an extra sport, right? And it prepares you for tackle football, but it's also a great experience. It's a fun game. Yes, it will be an Olympic sport here soon. So, but it's definitely a offshoot of tackle football, right? So, a lot of the people want like they want to go above and beyond, and thinking that they're gonna, they want multiple practices, they want all these different things to do for flag football, when in all reality, like you should be training and developing, and then using the flag football component as kind of the get out there and go. Because when you play tackle football, that's where a lot of practice is spent on learning the X's and O's and execution, whereas flag football is not necessarily that in depth, right? It just isn't.
It's an activity.
It's an activity. And so like, we do play cards, we show the kids the cards, they show up and do it. Even our 7-on-7, like we don't want to go too crazy into team and scheme because it's a different game than what they're going to play when they're back with their team. So, but I think managing, so like sometimes when they're younger, there's so many overzealous or excited parents that quite honestly are trying to get it all done now, and they don't realize it's such a long race. And then there's also then the other end of the spectrum is the kid gets to high school, and then it's like their head's kind of been in the sand for the first 3 years of high school. Then all of a sudden, as a senior, is like, oh my God, he's got to be ready to go. And then you and I both know it's too late at that point.
It's way too late at that point. And, all these camps are popping up. And I see these kids who, been trying to get them to come to the Elite Combine or the Casey Varsity Combine or Lindenwood Camp or this for years. And now it's going to be summertime before their senior year. Now they're started, hey, I'm going to go here. I'm going to do, well, good luck. Good luck with that, because it doesn't just work that way. You can't just turn it on your senior season and hope that I want to get exposure, because that whole process is a building process, and it's all stuff you have to do, like you said, just like with the nutrition and the sleep and the training.
It's all part of it.
It's all part of it. You can't just turn it on like you want to. Something real quick I want to talk about, since we're talking about health and youth and stuff. There's an organization. It's called Devon's Beat. Go to devonsbeat.com. It's actually about the brother. Remember Dawson Parrott, who came to the Elite Combine and was really good? Well, his brother in I forget what year it is. His mom sent me the information. Anyway, he had developed something called it's a heart condition.
Oh yeah.
And he developed it, and he almost died from it. Anyway, they have a organization where they're trying to raise money from it, and you don't know it until you have it. A lot of times people don't realize that they have it until death. But it starts out where they thought he was just dehydrated. He started having all this stuff. Anyway, she wrote a book about it. They're having some fundraisers and stuff. So I just wanted to tell people about that. Hopefully we'll have Angela on to talk about the book, because it correlates with football. And he recovered from it, and he later went on to punt at Quincy University.
Wow.
So it's a really cool, interesting story. And she just put a book out. You can go to devonsbeat.com to find out more about that, or Devon's Beat on Facebook as well. But we're going to have her on at some point to talk about it. And they have fundraisers coming up. I know they have like a 5K, I think, or 3K coming up on May the 3rd. Out in Lincoln, Missouri. And it is out in Lincoln, Missouri. So it's so good for them that they're trying to bring awareness to it. But that goes into the whole thing you're talking about.
Let me tell you.
You have to pay attention.
The scariest thing is that the sudden death heart attacks with kids have been on the rise. I mean, they've always been an issue. I'll talk about it. One of the kids on our that we trained, he played at Missouri Valley. And again, this is like one of those things where you think you're lucky stars in this instance, and obviously in his. But TJ Bright, who's a kid that this happened 2 years ago. But again, when athletes, we often assume like, hey, everything's just okay because they're working out and they're staying healthy and this and that. But there's a lot of variables, and some of those variables, like we don't know when someone walks into our facility or shows up on a game field. We don't know all the parameters, like what they've taken. And it could just be something as simple as an over-the-counter medication. It could be something as simple as just being dehydrated.
Right.
Or it could just be a congenital heart defect that has not reared its ugly head. So the unfortunate thing is like with TJ, he woke up in the morning to go to football practice. So like one group had already come in, like they, I guess, had morning runs. Back to morning runs.
Mm-hmm.
They woke TJ up and, hey, we got to get up. We got to go. And so he got out of bed, literally out of bed, had worked out the day before, gets out of bed. And then the roommate's like, why is he snoring?
Yeah.
It wasn't a snore. It was clearly gasping for his, breath. So he had his heart stopped. And he basically was, I think 45 minutes. They had to bag, like, as God would have it, the roommate who came in from the workout that morning had a bag with him because he had just learned CPR, and he took the bag accidentally.
Wow. That's incredible.
was able to breathe
no
for
accident.
him.
Yeah.
Wasn't an accident.
Mm-mm.
Breathe from 45 minutes. They had to get him to Columbia because they were in, I think that's in Marshall, Missouri. And so he, God love him, he was in touch and go. Literally the night before it happened, or the 2 nights before,
Yeah.
he butt dialed me
Hmm.
and left me a 5-minute message. Like it was him and his friends hanging out and talking or whatever.
And you listened to all
And
5
I
minutes.
did. I was like what's TJ up to? So, but yeah, he literally got great medical care. They flew him to Columbia.
Yeah.
He survived.
That's
and
amazing.
He's thriving. He obviously stopped playing football, but they could not tell him. But they said it was something as simple as they think his heart just skipped a beat and then did not get back in rhythm.
Right.
It was like,
and
that was it. And so,
that's what Devin Parrott, the whole Devin's Beat charity is all about. And he has long QT syndrome. It's a heart rhythm.
Yeah, that's what he had. That's what they think TJ had. Yes.
So that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, so here we go.
That's it. I think that's what it was.
It's a heart.
I could be wrong, but I think that's what it was.
Heart rhythm disorder that can potentially cause fast cardiac heartbeats.
Mm-hmm.
And and a lot of people just die. They realize that they have it when the death brings it on. So, so devinsbeat.com. And there's a book out, and we're going to have Angela on at some point.
Yeah. I mean, it's
to talk about it.
It's tough, man, because you see certain things with kids sometimes and it'll scare the crap out of you just from working out. I mean, I'm always very conscious of if someone says they're feeling sick or their vision's starting to get blurred. Like a common thing that we see is kids will get like in warm-ups, like they'll get like a little hyper and they'll kind of, too much blood will rush down to the lower extremities. They'll get a little lightheaded. And so, we see that but it's scary because like, again, you don't know, they don't know. It's just a deal that everybody's got to be vigilant, right? And you just keep your eyes out for signs of potential issues with kids. And so,
that's really good. And you guys do that a lot. I know sometimes, you'll have a big boy come in to elite and man, they're sucking wind just after warm-ups and you're like, uh-oh.
Oh yeah.
Here we go, because they have no idea what they're in store for.
Right.
Right. Because it's not just coming in. You're not just,
well, and the problem is you don't know what that person has or has not done.
Yeah.
With themselves, right? And so, and again, sometimes it's not even like really hard workout stuff. It's really basic.
It's not walking through either.
Correct.
You do have to be physical and it's physical activity.
Yes.
That's when you really find out. And sometimes you find out somebody's really out of shape.
Yeah.
And it's a wake up call. It's like, hey.
Right. And that's just baby steps from there, man. Just doing the best you can. And obviously that's where nutrition comes into play. And then obviously there are issues that are beyond anyone's control when it comes to, congenital issues that you don't know about. I mean, there's I'll never forget one of my buddies, ended up being a buddy in high school, but he was my brother was 2 years older than me. This guy was a year between myself and my brother. And so Parkway South Middle School, they're playing for Bonham football. They're doing conditioning at the end and the kid just goes blue. I mean, he's out, like not breathing anything. Anyway, they rush him to get him the ambulance, to get him to the hospital. And apparently the way that something in his heart was had grown to the point where it was wrapped around his heart essentially. So it probably didn't matter when he was younger, and then he got bigger and more constrained, and blood flow.
Like a vein or artery.
Vein or artery was wrong way.
Grew. Yeah.
Yep, grew, and it choked him out essentially.
Wow.
And open heart surgery, he survived. I mean, the crazy thing is that happened when he was like 7th or 8th grade. 7th grade, probably. Yeah, 7th grade. And by the time he was in high school, he ended up playing Missouri State. The guy, he was a strength coach and at Ole Miss, and he's done a lot of cool things. But you just never know. You never know. You just never know. So, like that's been, when you go through USA football coaching, that they talk about stuff like that. You just things to be aware of and just things to think about.
Yeah. And so, I mean, even though you're young and you feel immortal when you're young, I thought it could run through walls, and I'm sure you did too. And stuff you got to pay attention to, even if whether you're a parent or especially if you're a player, pay attention to your own body. It tells you stuff, especially like the lack of sleep. That is such a big problem. And everybody's got a screen and pediatricians now are trying to tell kids young, no screen time, no screen time. It causes all kinds of havoc with sleep
Yes,
and with
the blue
attention.
light
Yep.
especially before bed.
Right.
Not good.
And these guys are just living on social media,
Yeah,
man.
I mean,
Because there's like 20 different ones that they're going from one to the next, to the next, to the next.
Yeah, I think a lot of humans do that, right? I mean, all ages, right? It's crazy. So everybody's like, the older people got their Facebook, and the younger kids got Snapchat and TikTok and all that stuff.
That's
and
crazy.
It is. So just one of the parts of our job, like I'm far more on. I don't have a lot of personal information out on social media, but it's more just for business.
Same.
But the reality of it is it can be addicting.
Yeah, same. I mean, I'm thankfully that stuff with me precludes me from having the time to do Facebook or Snapchat or any of that other jazz.
Yeah.
I'm lucky if I get to the Instagram to update my stuff, because I'm just like X.
So yeah, but parents, if your kids are doing like the early morning workouts, or they're doing 2 sports or lifting during the day at school, and then they have
attention.
Got to pay close attention, make sure they're eating, make sure they're hydrating. It's one of those things that you have to understand what's going on. And again, it's not all of it's not life or death, but a lot of it is performance based in future injuries. A lot of the injuries come when you're tired. A lot of those injuries come when you're dehydrated.
Better to catch it early as opposed to when something
100%
serious happens.
The other thing people ignore quite a bit is their electrolytes, right? So like in the trace minerals. So there's some really good things that your athletes can drink. Some of it doesn't taste all that well, but like there's a lot of like Celtic salts and things like that are really good for replenishing the minerals in the body. And so 9 times out of 10, it's not even necessarily that you haven't drinking enough liquid. It's that your body's not retaining it at the right levels. And that's a lot of that's based on the minerals that are inside that. So like, while Gatorade's probably good during a game just because it's got sugar and a few other things, it's got actually a pretty good balances for in-game energy. But if it's during the day, there's probably better options, right? And I think that's where people start to understand that again, educating yourself to it. Like, we live in a world where there's a lot of information out there, and so it's no different than that recruiting game. Like, educate yourself to what that is, and I don't know. There's just so much out there.
It's all part of a process.
It is.
It used to be back in the day. Yeah, you went to high school, you played some football, then you were done, and from there. But as it's gotten to be a big business in college, it's trickled down.
Oh yeah.
And so everything just kind of follows the college game. College follows the pro, and high school and so forth. JFL follows the high school stuff. So it's not what it used to be.
No,
when you were growing up.
And to that point,
it's not that way for your kids.
There's so many kids right now that are not getting recruited at the level they should be based on just the volume of what's going on and how the transfer portals are really affecting, right? And I'm telling you, JP, if they, like, I keep hearing, and I've heard this from my niece, who's in the golf side of things. I've heard it from numerous college coaches, football, that they believe that 5th year is coming. So they're going to have 5 years of eligibility to play. So the red shirt really is obsolete. So here we go. They do that next year. Okay, let's say they implement it, because I think they're voting on it this summer. Okay, they do that. And so you have these kids that are now, like, say, for instance, a kid that has played 4 years, did not redshirt, and is getting ready to leave. Well, now they get to stay. So that's a group. That's one more layer of kids that are going to screw a high school kid out of a scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
Then, let's be truthful, you have the kids that just redshirted this year, like a Talon Chandler, right? Played in 3 or 4 games, but is redshirted.
Right.
Well, why does he not get 5 years to play? Right? Because the rules were different. So now they changed. So what's going to do that? What are they going to do to that whole class of people? Well, they can give them an extra, they will, because they don't want to get sued.
Exactly.
So now that's a whole nother layer of people that's going to stay in college, right? They're going to be there 5 to 6 years, which is what caused this backup and logjam, and then created this environment to make the transfer portal even more damaging to the high school kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you just look at it and it's like you keep saying, well, when they get over the 6-year deal, it's going to clear up. Transfer portal's full swing and it didn't clear up. Oh, NIL stuff is really full swing. That didn't clear it up. They add a 5-year rule. That's going to make it worse. They had these two groups of people that kind of got edged out by the rules. That's going to really hurt.
Yep.
I mean, it's going to really, really hurt. And I think, to kind of like talk about it with the kids that like we see, you don't really have the answers for them per se, right?
We're kind of getting them though.
Yeah.
We're kind of getting them though. And really what the answer is going to be is you're going to have to change the way you look at recruiting.
Oh yeah.
You're going to have to change the look at, well, I'm a D1, I'm a high level, I'm a SEC Big Ten caliber talent. You might be, but the situation that is beyond your control has changed that. It's not in your hands anymore, right? The transfer portal's changed that. The extra year is going to change that. So what you have to look at it as, and we've talked about it for a long time, over a year now, college football is professional football, right? So now you have to look at your recruitment as, okay, well, instead of being drafted and going right to the major leagues, which is Big Ten, SEC, high level P4, you're going to have to look at the smaller colleges as minor league baseball, right? That's the analogy that I kind of draw. So there's nothing wrong with going and dipping your toe, getting you the experience you need in the minor league system, and then the bigger leagues are going to come looking for you. So if you go and you succeed at that high level that you can, they're going to find you. It just prolongs your recruitment if you look at it that way.
So correct. That's 100% correct. But what I find so interesting about the whole process, and this probably will offend some, but it's the truth. For so long in the old system, like, so when you get to college, you realize you're like, this guy, who in the hell recruited this guy, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the coaches are probably thinking the same thing. So what the transfer portal does is it makes the college coaches, in many cases, many levels, not all levels, it allows them to erase mistakes, right, in recruiting that they could never erase before.
Right.
And so they're allowed to, because they can just push people out. So what's going on right now in a lot of schools, they're having their spring exit meetings once their spring ball wraps up, because it'll be prior to the transfer portal. And they're nicely telling kids that, hey, you can stay, but you can't stay
That's
here.
nice. Spring exit meeting. That sounds good.
And that's what's going on, right? Yep. So there's kids that are either, getting re-upped, if you will, like, hey, we need to really, this guy's important for us, we're going to pay him more money, and they're talking about that. Or they're telling kids they need to find somewhere else.
Before it used to be called run off. They would run you off. Now it's spring exit meetings.
Yeah.
Your spring exit.
That's what they're doing.
Sounds much better, doesn't it?
Yeah, right.
Well, spring exit.
And the exit is the door's right there,
right,
and you can go, and
the exit is we're running you off.
Yeah, right. Or right. So like, it's the unfortunate thing though is it does allow them to have a shorter window of time to just push guys out. Like, oh, hey man, it didn't work out. There's probably somewhere else for you. Have a good day.
Yeah.
And then that, it's tough for that kid too, because, there's not a lot of guidance. They're all back by themselves. Like who's going to help them? Maybe their high school coach, maybe their trainer.
Yeah.
Who else are they going to have? Like that's their college coach isn't going to help them, because they're moving on to the next crew of guys. And so you do feel bad in a sense, because a lot of it's not their fault. It's not. It's just a situation. Maybe there's a coaching change, and that's the other thing. How many of these situations these kids are getting asked to leave have been asked to play 3 different positions, or they have a position coach change, or something like that that's out beyond their control, was not part of the equation when they signed 3 or 4 years ago or 2 years ago, and now all of a sudden it's changed, and then they're sitting there going, well, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason there are kids that make really bad decisions that go in the transfer portal. There's also kids that are forced into the transfer portal that, quite honestly, it's not 100% their fault.
Might not play football ever again.
Oh, they might not.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is,
the quote unquote mistakes.
That kid, quite honestly, that could have been his ticket to, getting his education and all that. So he'll look like the guy that failed, when really the system kind of failed him, right? Especially if he was doing everything he was supposed to do,
Right.
showing up on time and all that. But I do think that secretly, as much as they don't like some of the transfer portal stuff, college coaches love the fact that they can make changes on their mistakes. And what percent, this is just off the top of your head, what percent chance, or what percent of accuracy do you think they hit on with the kids that they recruit?
Maybe 10.
I would say so.
Yeah, maybe 10.
If they're realistic about themselves.
Well, I mean, as following this, that's about
the industry standard.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's pretty much what it always been. So now they even get better at that.
Right.
They need to improve their odds at that. It bails them out. It's a 100%. Nice bailout. So, but at the same time, you see them not taking a chance on a kid. So there's some kids who are just not going to get that opportunity that they had before, who would have made it and will make it. So it's kind of made them a little lazier as far as the whole evaluation process goes. And which is why you see guys out there who, only have like mid-major offers or less. And a lot of upset parents is like, well, what's going on? We're doing everything right. We've done this. My kid's doing this and he's this kind of athlete. It's not them. It's the whole, it's not you, it's me. Mm-hmm. It literally is them.
It is that.
It really is. It really is. It really is that. And it's just making it more difficult. And this is why you need to go in eyes wide open. And I know the whole romantic thing has always been, I'm the star athlete. My boy's a good athlete. He's king of the high school, whatever. That doesn't matter anymore. It is 100% a business, and they will 100% cut your heart out if you want to go in and romanticize it and be like, oh man, isn't this great? I'm a high school athlete who's getting recruited at a major, for colleges. No, that's all out the window. It's all just bottom line.
There's a lot of luck in it, right? There really is. Yeah. Being fortunate as far as like ending up, because my point in saying that is a lot of kids don't know the variables that they need to be looking at to see if the program they're choosing is a good fit for them.
Yeah.
They're allowing things like facilities, they're allowing things like uniforms, they're allowing things like NIL, they're allowing things that quite honestly are not going to keep them on the field if they can't perform or fit, if they don't fit. And we've seen it 1,000 times with kids that you're like, wow, why did he go there? Right. So those kids that just over time, unfortunately, they get found out faster if they made a mistake in recruiting or they made a mistake in recruiting that style of player, and they just bounce them. And so I do think long term, where my fear is though, is that, that's going to push guys to the FCS level and the D2 level, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to push a lot, and even NAIA. My fear is though, is one, just from knowing how they operate, the D2s and even some of the FCS, like they don't have the infrastructure. They don't have all the things that we're talking about, the nutrition. They don't have all of the strength and conditioning component. Yes, some do. Don't get me wrong. There's some that have, like Washburn and Pitt State, got unbelievable facilities. I would assume support staff to go right along with it. But the reality of it is like it's a real crapshoot, right? And like I was telling you, like we have a kid that's at a D3 school. They got 18 quarterbacks in their roster in the spring.
Yeah,
18, right? I mean, that's criminal.
Yeah,
that is criminal.
I mean, not everybody's going to be able to jump from Pitt State to Oregon or Northwest Missouri. I mean, but there are those guys. That's still gonna be there. You'll be able to probably go up, right, a level each. You're not going to be able to go from Missouri Valley to Mizzou or this, but you might be able to go from Missouri Valley if you want to play Washburn. Situations like that. And back to the whole eyes wide open thing. Don't just be happy to be there or be part of the process. You have, and I know it's going to take a lot of the fun out of it for everybody, because nothing funner than going to colleges and taking the tour and looking at everything and having everybody glad hand you and tell you. But man, you really got to be, in it for business purposes. It's 100% a business. So you can't believe everything. It almost takes some of the joy out of it.
Well,
to be honest, I mean, if you want to look
sometimes
at it realistically.
This is where it's such.
I know you're already hearing
stuff. It's a tough thing because I know the reality of it. You know the reality of it.
Mhm.
So I was telling this, like, sometimes you feel like so cynical when you're telling the kids the
me.
reality
Yep.
of what it is, because you want them to have fun,
Right.
but all of them have the dream, right? And so if they
Gotta
have the
cover
dream
yourself.
that they want to do it, I think it's incumbent upon people in our profession to be realistic
Mhm.
and tell them that's great. The dream is great. It's cool to have the bag tag on your bag.
Yep.
It's another thing to be Brady Cook, working out multiple hours a day, doing film study on your own, doing rehab on your own because you're hurt, and all that stuff that people don't see, right?
Right. It doesn't just happen.
And kind of canceling your social life, and
Mm.
so all that good stuff.
Which, by the way, not to interrupt you, but congratulations, Brady Cook.
Yes, I
on
was
his
going to bring that up.
engagement. There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah. How about that?
Yeah.
Good job. Congratulations. But and they started dating.
So
I remember
we
they
did have a
started dating in
social
high
life,
school.
yeah.
Well, no, they started dating in high school.
Hey, he said grade school. They were
yeah,
passing
yeah.
hallways,
They were.
so-
Yeah, they were. Yeah, right. And then
Yeah.
they were. Yeah, I was privy to all the fun stuff.
know you know
them
the
dating
intimate
when
details,
they were
yeah.
going through. Yeah, it's so cool to see that they've grown
But
together.
I just
and all
wanted to
that.
get that out there. So
Yeah,
you
congratulations.
triggered it. Like
Congratulations.
ADD, yeah.
So yeah, I think the whole process, like, I was telling these kids the other night, like, sometimes you hear coaches say things, right? And they're going to say things in a way that, quite honestly, you have to understand where they're coming from, right or wrong. You have a man who is who's not going to be really thrilled with some of the stuff you do. And he's going to talk to you in ways that probably other people have never talked to you, right?
Mhm.
And so there's a thick skin component, but a lot of it's coming from a place of, let's just use a coach for example, who's making $4 million to coach or $9 million to coach, right? And I told our kids the other night, I said, do you think for one moment he's going to allow you and your misbehavior or your lack of focus to get in the way of his earnings and how he has set himself up in a situation that he probably can't even believe he's in?
Mhm.
You think he's going to allow you to be the one who's going to get him knocked out of there for that?
Yeah.
So do you think there's a level of intensity that is and a level of professionalism that maybe isn't as professional as you think it might be? It's really it's more militaristic. It's more like, hey, this is the way, my way or the highway. That's
Well,
why you see guys getting walked out the building, because
you make such a great point, because unfortunately, I mean, I don't know, you don't even have to be judgmental. A large majority of these guys, their main goal is to keep that position
well, yeah.
because of what you said. And I don't think a lot of people realize that.
No, I mean,
Right?
like,
They think that, well, they're a coach. They love the love of football. Man, they want that death grip.
some of these guys are making anywhere
Living
from
large,
$350,000
That's
to coach,
low, yeah.
up to $9 or $10 million,
Yeah.
right? And so a season,
Hmm.
not to mention all the other trappings, the car, the expense account, all the other things that they got
Yeah.
going on, right? The dinners and the clothing and all, whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
You think they're going to let you not performing get in the way of what they're doing?
Right.
They're going to find someone else.
Right.
And now it's never been easier to do it. And oh, by the way, they can find somebody else that's 22 years old and going into his 5th season, and he's an animal, and he's got stats, and all they got to do is drop him $400K to come play for him, and he'll do it
without question. And let's take a look at, for example, in-state school Mizzou, right? Coach Drink, good coach, really good coach. But I got to tell you what, the portal has made Mizzou and under Coach Drinkowitz, along with who Barry Odom recruited, that's made his life so much easier. That's helped them get to this point. Without that portal, how would they be doing? Right?
Well, here's the thing. If you look at the kids they've recruited from St. Louis and Kansas City over the last 5 years, there's been some hits and there's been some
a lot of misses on the biggest
a lot of
ones,
misses, right? And so
portal bails them out.
That's how the portal gets you. And so again, as much as it's the name of the game, back in the day, that's what I'm talking about. It would have been a death sentence to that job.
Absolutely.
Because that person is not, you can't make up for that. Like, Williams Newary, right, was one of the top guys.
Yeah.
But you called it. You said he wasn't, right?
Yep.
And he gets down there. We're getting reports early on. I mean, there's some other kids I can talk about that were locally came out of St. Louis, same position group, kind of a stretch, right? But had other big offers. And then suddenly they get there, and the reports are, hey, he's not really working at practice. He's not this. He's not that. And then the parents are upset, but they don't understand, like, they're not working, and so they're not fitting in, and so not fitting in means it's time to go. And again, they're just going to push you out. They're going to make you feel a certain way, or they'll just tell you to go. And I think people struggle with that. But back in the day, it wasn't. You could get away with it. You can't now.
Right.
You can't.
Or like just think about like Pinkel and then Odom, right? They had to hit. If they weren't getting the star, which Gary Pinkel got a lot more than people believe he did. Okay. You had to find, and I'm telling you what,
and Pinkel then cultivate them.
They absolutely. Coach Cool, he took guys that were linebacker size, right? And along with their strength and conditioning, made these linebacker size guys. Think about the different guys, Marcus Golden, all of them, Michael Sam. I mean, Ray from
Shane Ray,
Shane Ray. Think about those guys. Would they play at Mizzou today?
I don't know. Yeah, no, probably not.
I mean, Marcus, obviously.
Marcus would, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm talking about
Alden Smith would.
Yeah, Alden Smith would, right. But he found those guys, and he found those other guys.
Well, but here's the thing.
In between
all the big
Lorenzo
dogs,
Williams.
very few. There were a few.
Yeah.
4 or 5-star, 4-star guys that made it to Mizzou. That very rare that they did not play at a 4-star level in college, right?
Mm-hmm.
A couple. There was a couple that did not. But by and large, they did not miss on those guys.
No.
And I think the tough thing for the high school kids, and I hate to say this, the number of high school kids, because of I'm not quite sure, and we can talk about this, like you and I both know, like, these offers are like these self-fulfilling prophecies. Like, so for instance, we had a bunch of kids go down to the Under Armour deal down in Nashville this past weekend. And so you look at like the listing of the quarterbacks or the listing of whatever position.
You know where you're going.
And you see the stories that come out of it, right? And the stories are about the young quarterbacks that were there, not about the kids that are rising, that are actually recruitable.
Yeah.
Right? Had nothing. One kid that was the MVP, and the rest of the story was about an 8th grader that went to school at the place where they hosted it, right? Which, that's bizarre. You can play football as a varsity in 8th grade.
Yeah, that's
right.
That's feel good.
Right. And so it's, he threw really good, right? Okay. That's fine.
Yeah.
But will he be getting the article written about him when he's going to be a junior or senior? No, they'll be writing about the next young kid that's there, right? And so it's sensational. It's new. It's someone you haven't heard of, right? And so, like, but the reality of the situation is very little analysis, especially on the recruiting side of it, like this recruiting site side of it.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, they are getting that information out to schools, and there's the UC report, I believe, is like they're
in the future. By the way, if you want to save yourself some trouble, ask me. I'll
I know.
Because what I thought you were going is, look at the guys who are all down there. You and I know them all well.
Oh, yeah.
Most of those guys have been to the elite combine. Some were just at the elite combine. They were down there. Other ones, from Boom.
Yeah.
I mean, we know. So that and them going down there, that's great. They get maybe some exposure, not as much as you might think, though.
Right.
As you're saying,
well,
they get some free stuff. They get
you
some
think
swag.
you think you're going to get like your name written and this and that. And the reality of it is
it's a cattle call.
And the media component of it is far more about selling subscriptions and pleasing fan bases than it is about developing like an analysis of an athlete. So behind the scenes, there's probably stuff that goes on. I don't know that for a fact. I know they do send out the film and all that stuff of the kids.
Well, all the stuff goes into the database, but a lot of those guys are just known. And I think it's part of it is promotional and marketing, right? Mm-hmm. Because you have Under Armour, and Under Armour can say, this guy, if he makes it to the NFL, was at our camp.
Yep.
We discovered this guy. Now, a lot of these names who were down there and did extremely well. Rocco Marriott's one of them.
They've already been discovered.
But see, they get to use them and say he was at our camp.
Right.
and sell their shoe, or sell their gear and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really what that's all about. It's not about, necessarily really discovering anybody or helping anybody or elevating anybody. It's about, we want to have this name guy here. You know what I mean? But like
Whereas I love discovering guys, you love discovering
guys
guys,
and
right?
helping them.
Yeah.
Right. Helping elevate them, promote them, help them live that dream. See, from that standpoint, you can still, see that it's a dream, right? It's a dream that you're trying to build. And that's the fun part. Once you get into the business part of the recruiting, that's where you unfortunately, the dream kind of goes. But like Rocco Marriott was at UA Next Nashville. A lot of guys, Nick McClellan.
Yeah.
Also,
Brett Ottensmeyer.
all these guys, so many of these guys. But Rocco Marriott, it says here, I have what he did down there. So 6'3.8", right? You're 6'4" at elite, right? His 40-yard dash, 4.51. 4.5 at elite. Right. So if you want to talk about Mr. Consistency, his shuttle was a little slower.
Because they did it had rained.
They had him do it in the rain.
It had rained. Yeah.
So he was a 3.94, 3.96.
So you're on wet turf. You're not going to be as fast.
He was a 4.1, right? Just a little bit slower. The 9.9 broad. I mean, Mr. Consistency. He was 9.10 broad at elite.
Right.
So here Rocco was, and he went down there and he got some cool stuff, got some cool swag down there. Cause I've been to these events and I know everybody gets new pair of shoes and gloves and all the cool stuff and all that. But
hey, side note.
Yeah.
I know they want you to wear that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Never wear a brand new pair of shoes, especially if you're trying to do something that's, you're going to be seen by anybody. You want to do well. Yeah, blisters, issues with the shoe. I mean, it's a nightmare.
Put that in your trophy case.
Yeah, I mean, the number of times we back in the day with the Rams, we would do the NFL 7-on-7, and we would go to these tournaments, and all the kids would get, there was a room like literally bigger than this, full of shoes, Adidas, right? And you get to pick which ones you want, and really cool. I mean, neat experience for the kids.
Hey, and I always tell them, because when parents or players ask me, I'm like, it's a cool experience. You get some free stuff. However, we just had the Elite Combine, same deal. Probably helps you as much or more. And a lot of these guys, they get their foot in the door earlier, coming to Elite or coming to KC Varsity Combine that's happening May 3rd at Parkway West. You get it. Those are probably more valuable, along with Lindenwood, than that. That's great clout because you get to do it. You get to put it out there.
But yeah, I had a parent tell me that was there. He was a little shocked. He's like, so let's say it's like 26 quarterbacks. Let's say there was 50 receivers. I don't know, whatever the positions.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, I was very shocked at a number of the kids why were they even there?
Because they need to fill. I'll tell you exactly why that is. Because I've been, like I said, I've been to these, and they need to fill. They need numbers. You got to have so many players to do certain things, and local guys, they want to bring them in there because, again, this is marketing and promotion, right? This is marketing, promotion,
entertainment,
and a cattle call. I mean, you have the component you have a recruiting service who is there and is getting data and photos and numbers.
A camp company that came the day before that ran the one where everybody gets to do it, and then they let a few people through. So this exclusivity thing, right? Which again.
And it's the rest of it is marketing. They're marketing a product. They're marketing Under Armour, which, so am I apparently.
Yeah, right. Did you go to the camps? That was
I got my free swag. I ran a 4.51 40. I did. Me and Rocco, we lined up and
side by side, tandem 40.
Yeah.
So
mine was like a 45 though.
Yeah,
this was a 4.5. Mine was a 45,
and with a hamstring and
jogging.
quads.
I am. Yeah. my bad ankle was.
Oh to be young, but yeah, I do think that again, it's so frustrating because, as a parent, you go down there, your kid does well, or as an athlete, you go down there, you do well. And then you turn around in the it's at an Elite 11 or at one of these events, and your name's nowhere to be found.
Yeah, that's aggravating.
And it's aggravating because you go, well, wait a second. I outthrew that kid bounced 5 balls off the ground in a row, right?
How many times we saw that?
Right.
Right.
I mean, it happens. And then, like I told you, like you'll see these there's like for all the different positions, but there's like, quarterback, specific site that rates kids, right? And so like these kids will put their stuff in when they're in 6th grade or 5th grade, right? To put in and then they get a rating. Well, they don't update the rating like every single year on that kid or so to speak. Cause if you look at like there's no dates and times on the ratings either. So then it's kind of obscure. But then the new kid that comes in that's older, the same age, meaning a couple years later, but your same age, is getting a higher rating than you because he's 2 years older than the 6th grader that they rated you at, but you've made improvement. And
Right.
so it's really one of those things where you start to like look at it and you go, are you in this to make money? Or are you in this to actually move the ball forward and help people? Right.
Mhm.
Because it's a little sad to see because the reality of it is it's how your name gets on lists.
Yeah.
Because they're clearly selling your information to people or partnering with people.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The parents, you got to take it one day at a time, control what you can control. Understand that it is different. I'm coming to the realization I have a son who's in 8th grade. His recruiting is going to be completely different than that of kids that I just helped in the last 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It will. That's going to be fascinating. For me, standing on the sideline, that's going to be fascinating to watch that happen.
I mean, it's bizarre because it's just a different environment, right? And there's things that he can control, which he's doing a good job with. There's other things he can't control,
right?
Which I don't think he's even aware of yet.
In the end,
but he will, though.
But in the end, you can't control offers.
Correct.
So
can't
do what you can do, and
Right.
don't worry about the rest. Everything will fall into place, and that's my biggest piece of advice.
Yeah.
So what's going on? What's going on with Elite, with you? 7-on-7 is kind of winding down.
We got 2 tournaments left for 7-on-7. We're going to Chicago this weekend. That should be fun. It's going to be decent weather, I think, up there. We're going to be going to visit Northwestern University, so we get to see those guys.
Interesting.
Check out the progress of their new stadium, $1 billion stadium.
Cool.
And then we have skills training every Wednesday, every Sunday. Speed and agility performance classes, running. I mean, if you
definitely want to do that,
if you want to get faster, you need to run, right? And the way we have our training set up, if you come in on and are training a couple of days of football, essentially, if you're doing like an unlimited monthly package, like your performance training's thrown in there, like you can do it. It's Monday through Friday with high schools at 5:30 and 6:30 each night. There's no reason not to be doing it, especially if you're not playing another sport. But we have plenty of kids that play sports after school and then come in and run, right? But they got to eat and they got to make sure they're doing their protein as soon as they're done working out.
You got to train. That's the bottom line. I don't care where or what, you find somebody reputable and train.
Yep.
Especially with you have combine season, you have KC Varsity Combine coming up May 3rd here. Go to kcvarsitycombine.com. I'm sure you guys
St. Louis Metro football coach.
Yep, I'm sure you guys be happy
we'll train you.
To train guys that are thinking about the KC Varsity Combine.
Yeah, 100%.
West. Speaking of speed, getting faster, getting stronger. Yep, the St. Louis football Metro coaches is the 12th, and then Lindenwood the 6th and the 7th of June.
Yep.
And man, football's full speed ahead from there. It is just on. It is on until December.
Yeah.
So get in there while you still can. Get trained up. Be ready.
Do not complain when someone else that's been training does better than you.
Correct. It'll all work harder.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
If you don't do it, just know someone else is willing to do it. I can tell you that for a fact. Our facility's full of people that have made the choice that they're going to do it. And sometimes the easiest way to get started is just come in, do a free class just to test it out. Break your own apprehension.
Showing up's half
just
the battle.
show up.
Yep.
Just be consistent. And I promise you, we have kids, the story after story of kids that have become consistent over time, but just training, that end up just being a guy that you're like, wow.
Consistency leads to success. Yeah.
And other guys that were supposed to be so good have fallen off in that same amount of time.
The stories we could tell. We could do a whole show on that.
Yes.
But anyway, everybody, it was a pleasure as always. Enjoy the rest of your day, your week. There's our social media again. Matt, you can go ahead and read them off.
I'm at Elite Football on X and Elite Football Academy on Instagram, and then elitefootball.net for the web.
Yep. JP Rock MO on X, JP Rock Scout U on the gram, on Spotify, on Apple, and of course, all things Football 360 Show, football360show.com. Reach out, leave us a comment. Of course, like and share, subscribe, all the good stuff that you're supposed to do. And don't get tricked, don't get fooled. It is April Fool's Day. And us fools will talk to you next week. Yeah.